Hi, it's Paola from Italy. The first time I watched How I Met Your Mother was during the first wave of COVID back in March 2020.
My name is Josh. I first watched the show as a college student in New York.
My name is Anna. I am in Los Angeles, planet Earth. How I Met Your Mother is special because whether I've had a fantastic day or a f***ing terrible day, watching that show is always the right move for the mood.
My friend told me to watch the show and just said, "I'm Ted Mosby." I had no idea what he's talking about. And I watched it and I came back to him and I said, I'm Ted Mosby.
You remember it was hard time with strict lockdowns and isolation. After a very tough day, every night I watched some episodes to, let's say, overcome such difficult time.
It feels right regardless to go spend time with those characters, those candid, stumbling, hilarious, raunchy, relentlessly themselves people. And that gives the same feeling, the same quality of what good friendship is.
And being between junior and senior year of college, I was terrified of what was coming next and how to make it happen the way I wanted. Then there was this wonderful show that was all about how the randomness of life is what gets you exactly where you need to be.
I'm alone. What a pity I won't be soon in New York City. When I see you, please permit me to tell you everything in New York City.
Well, hello. This is Josh Radnor. I am here with my friend Craig Thomas.
Hi, Josh.
Hey, it's great to be here with you. Welcome to the first episode of How We Made Your Mother. Are we calling it HWMYM?
I was wondering about that. HWMYM.
I think it's HWMYM.
Does it work?
I think it does. Yeah. So How I Met Your Mother, which is the show under discussion, is a show that ran on CBS from 2005 to 2014. Is that right, Craig?
That is correct. 9 seasons.
9 seasons. So almost a decade of our lives. I played the I in How I Met Your Mother. I played the character of Ted Mosby for 9 seasons. And Craig, tell us what you did on the show.
I was Barney. No.
Yes, that's right. I remember that.
I have not aged well. If you're watching on the YouTube. No, I'm the co-creator of the show along with my very brilliant writing partner, Carter Bays, who will be a guest on here to discuss future episodes. And we were lucky enough to create the show that found our way to the likes of you, Mr. Radnor.
Oh, thanks. Well, Craig and I have obviously been friends now for coming on 2 decades, which is astonishing. We both now live in New York. About once a year, I would say, we have a habit of grabbing a meal or some drinks and talk inevitably turns to How I Met Your Mother, as well as other things that are happening in our lives. But I so enjoy talking about How I Met Your Mother with you and unpacking this thing we made that has been the biggest gift and has carried a lot of shadow with it. And it's just like all things is a very complicated thing, but also a very beautiful thing. And you're the person I love talking about this show with the most. So when this idea struck me, like, you know what? It's actually time for me to turn around and revisit How I Met Your Mother, but also watch it. A lot of the episodes for the first time. I only watched about half the episodes when it was on. So I will be rewatching the show along with you and our listeners, some of whom I assume will be coming to the show for the first time. Other ones will have watched it many times and are just looking for the backstage notes here. But I figured if I'm going to do this, why don't we put it on the record and actually just walk through the show together? And much like the older, wiser narrator, Ted, which we are now around that age, let's look back and see who we were, who we are now, where we're going. And what else would you say about what we're doing here?
Well, first of all, I can't believe you only watched half of the episodes. I'm deeply offended. I think I'm just going to walk off. I'm walking off the project. No, the truth is I haven't rewatched the show door to door since it went off. I've seen episodes, but I haven't watched it door to door. And so I think what we're doing here is excavating back into our past. It was almost a decade of our lives. And we're trying to figure out what did we do there? we made this thing.
It's like the pineapple episode. You're like, what? We have to piece it together.
We're doing the pineapple incident, but for the entire series. What happened? We woke up. We've awakened, and we're almost 50 or whatever. I think you're there, and I'm
there.
almost there. And we're kind of going, wait, we are closer to the age of future Ted. We are closer to 2030 than we were to 2005 when the show launched. And it is strange. I was thinking about the sort of symmetry of it. We are something like, I think, 20 years since the premiere. I think this September will be 20 years since the premiere.
God.
We are just past 10 years of the finale airing, of it finishing airing. So there's a lot of round numbers. There's a 20 and there's a 10, and here we are. And it just seems like a good moment to kind of look back and take stock of it.
Yeah, another thing that when I called you to talk about this, that I really wanted to talk about, I said, I am astonished, one, at the kind of long tail of the show. A lot of shows go off the air and they go off the air. They go away, and maybe they come up randomly in a, I don't know, trivia night or a, remember that a moment will come back to you. But there's something about How I Met Your Mother. One, it keeps minting new fans.
Yes.
So people that were babies, children, or even in their teens when it was on have now discovered it. I also think there's a really sweet thing. I think parents are showing it to their teenage kids now. They're like, this show taught me a lot about, being an adult or a young adult, navigating all these things. But also I'm astonished at a number of things, but one of the ones that strikes me about when I hear from How I Met Your Mother fans, something I hear so consistently that it's not just anecdotal. There has to be something there, which is that people say, I got turned on to the show, or I started watching the show when I was in a really hard moment of my life, whether it's, I was going through a divorce or a sickness, or my parent had died. I was having a personal kind of moment of crisis. And there seems to be this thing I've noticed, that How I Met Your Mother is like soul medicine for people going through hard times.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it was conceived of that exactly. I don't think you and Carter sat down in 2004 and said, I know what we'll do. We'll do a soul panacea for people. But it seems like that's what it does for people. And I hear it so consistently that it strikes me as something worth exploring.
It's such an honor. People come up to us all the time and to you, Josh, and say the show got them through something really hard. And that, getting that, or they say, I married my wife because we realized we're both How I Met Your Mother fans.
Yeah.
Or they met at an event or something. Like, it's just the ways the show has been crucial in people's lives. Like the opening words from the fans. We have the greatest fans of any fans. How I Met Your Mother
shout
fans
out to
are
the
so
fans.
amazing. Huge shout out to the fans. If you are listening to this, you are an amazing person. And I find such an openness, Josh, to come talk to us about stuff. Do you get this a lot? I get this a little bit because I'm a writer, and I have to go around telling people. I wear a little shirt that says I created How I Met Your Mother, and just I'm that needy. But no
I
one
wear
knows
it on my face.
I'm not,
I have it tattooed on my face.
You have Ted Mosby tattooed on your face, and I've been dying for years to ask you this sort of two-part question. What was it like being Ted when the show was on and blowing up? And not being able to escape Ted's face. Your face is Ted's face, although you are not Ted.
Yeah.
And then what has that felt like kind of in the long 10 years since it went off the air? What has that felt like? Like, the reason I thought of that is that you just said people come up to you and they share these things with you. That seems like a real gift. I'm sure there's also like enormous weird downsides to it too.
Well,
it's such an interesting
Let's do an
thing.
entire episode on being Ted Mosby. I think there's a lot to unpack that I wouldn't be able to unpack here, but I'll do a little bit. I will say this. I remember I was writing liberal arts for the second film I wrote and directed, and it was 2009 or 10. I think it was 2010, and I went to Spain for a month, kicked around Spain, went to about 5 or 6 cities, wrote during the day, and kind of just got into trouble at night on some level. I mean, it was just really fun. And my friend Harula introduced me to all her friends who were living in Spain. So I had like these blind friend dates everywhere I went. But I would leave my hotel or wherever I was staying, and I was just getting recognized in Spain. And people would want a picture, they want to say hi. But then they'd say, do you want to come to a flamenco show in a couple hours? And I'd say, yes. And it was like my face was this like social, I don't know, like the fact that they were familiar with me gave them permission. It like it was just this weird social lubricant that I was accepted everywhere I went. One of the things I really loved about it made the world feel much smaller.
Right.
You know,
right.
I've always wanted to, I don't want to talk to every person I meet, but I do like the feeling that the world is not so big and filled with anonymous, scary people. Because I find most people are quite lovely once you get to know them. Once you get over that kind of like, you're strange and different. I don't know who you are or where you're from.
Yeah.
So it gave me like a common language with people. I think I've told you this, but this in Spain, I went to this little town called Dea. And I got really sick. I got food poisoning for the first 24 hours. And I crawled out of the place I was staying, and I had a hooded sweatshirt on that I think was like tied. And I was just trying to get like some ginger ale or something and some crackers because I was such a mess. And there were like 10 or 12 like young college students. They were hotel management interns from like all over the world. And they recognized me like through my hoodie with this sickness. And they were like,
is that Ted Mosby vomiting in a bush?
Yeah, exactly. And they invited me the next night to either come to lunch or dinner, I forget. But I ended up hanging out with these hotel management interns for like 3 or 4 days. And they were incredible. God. But this one guy owned the bar we were in Mallorca, and he owned the bar.
To be clear, not the bar that gave you food poisoning.
No, it wasn't. I got food poisoning in another town. He was 23 years old. His dad had just died. And so he inherited this bar. He had never been off the island of Mallorca. One night, he hands me a drink, and he says, "No can do'sville, baby doll." And he knew every single line of How I Met Your Mother.
That's so amazing.
And the thing he told me that I thought was so spectacular was he said, "How I Met Your Mother has taught me that what's happening now will be my memories one day."
Right.
So make sure that the present moment is great, that you're making good memories for yourself in the present moment, you know?
So beautiful.
And then these hotel management interns, for some reason, like, you know, they would have a few drinks in them, but they would tell me like their deepest, darkest secrets, like some shocking stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there was something they knew me. They felt
they knew
like
you. They felt comfortable with you. Yeah,
no,
that's it.
This is not an invitation, by the way, if you're hearing this, to come up to me and tell me about your trauma.
Tell you really weird.
So let's be judicious. Let's have boundaries. But there is something about this. This is the kind of stuff I really love. Is it gave me like access to people in a way that made the world feel friendly.
That's a beautiful story. That is a key. You have like the skeleton key to let you into doors that would not have been open.
And I wrote you this little ditty to sing to you in New York City.
We'll be right back. Craig.
Josh.
This weekend, I went up to Ithaca, to Cornell. I spoke to the students up at Cornell. My wife and Nelson and I went up there for a couple of days.
Yeah.
It was cold.
I bet.
Ithaca's not warm.
It's not warm. It's not known for its warmth.
No. I'm going to hit the road. I'm going to go on tour. I'm taking some songs on the road.
Ooh, you're going on tour.
Yeah.
So what's the longest you're away in a year? What's like the longest time you've been away?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I'll get a job that'll take me away for months. But I'm really looking for jobs where I don't have to do that much traveling. But when I am on the road, just like you, I got an empty place just sitting there collecting dust. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you like doing things that are smart or that are not smart?
Well, it depends. What age are we talking about? Because back in the day,
I'm talking about right now.
Oh, right now I try to do smart things, but back in the day, I did not. I did some.
No, we don't need
things.
to. You've evolved to the point where you're smarter and you can make smart choices. Here's the smart one you should make.
Yeah.
When you're away and your house is just sitting there gathering cobwebs, what could you do instead? How could you make your house work for you?
I know the answer.
You do.
I do.
Say it. Don't leave me hanging.
You could host your place on Airbnb.
Past you might not have been smart enough to do this.
Yeah.
Past me certainly wasn't smart enough to do this.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't own a home when I was a teenager and I was doing.
Well, it does help.
Stuff.
It does help, and you can earn a little more money towards your vacation. If I'm not selling the vinyl or the Josh Radnor merch as much as I want, or add a little on top of it, I got Airbnb helping me out.
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
Your home might be worth more than you think. Find out how much at airbnb.com/host. As the great American filmmaker David Lynch once hauntingly said, I am searching for a good pair of pants. I never found a pair of pants that I just love. I like comfortable pants and clothes I can work in that I feel comfortable in. I don't really like to get dressed up. I like to wear the same thing every day and feel comfortable. It's a fit. It's a certain kind of feeling. And if they're not right, which they never are, it's a sadness. You know, it interrupts the flow of happiness. I'm working on it. Believe me.
That's amazing. Is that an actual quote?
An actual 100% verifiable quote from David Lynch. If only David Lynch knew about Quince. Am I right, Craig?
Oh, you're so right. That was haunting. With Quince, you can get high-end, versatile pieces at prices you can actually afford. Now you can upgrade your style by snagging killer luxury essentials that sync with your vibe and your wallet. I just got a lovely sweater from Quince, I want to say, that I wore, and it's burgundy red, and I think I looked great in it.
And I just had my wife pick something out, and that's why my marriage is rock solid at this moment. Quince has all the must-haves, like Mongolian cashmere sweaters, like Craig got for from $50, iconic 100% leather jackets, and for Mr. Lynch, comfortable pants for every occasion.
Did I say I bought myself a sweater and look good? I meant I bought one for my wife and she looked good, because that's what happened, and we're just going to go with that now. I'm just as good of a husband. Here we go. The best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to you.
And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, along with premium fabrics and finishes, so you get to feel good about wearing these clothes.
Indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/yourmother for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/yourmother to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/yourmother.
I also got my mother a sweater.
And now, back to the show. Ted is a complicated character. He's a complicated character to have played because he's the eyes and ears. He's the center of the show. He's the person that kind of welcomes the audience in. But he was also his own really flawed, dimensional character. And I have found the people who relate to Ted are unbelievably fascinating to me. Just as many women come up to me and say, I'm like Ted, as men.
Oh, I love that.
Which is
That's
really
cool.
incredible. Yeah. But just like people who are worried they feel a little too much. You know, Ted was probably a HSP. Is that a highly sensitive person?
I think that's fair to say.
You know? And he just had a big heart, and it sometimes got in the way of social, what was expected of him. But I just, it's an honor to have played someone that kind of raw, right? Whose nerve endings were so exposed. And it helped me, it helped me become more vulnerable and, disclose parts of myself that maybe I was embarrassed about, that you guys were demanding that they be front and center.
Yeah.
And to also be, even at that time, 2005, to be a publicly vulnerable male.
Yeah.
It still carries risks.
How about now? How about now too? It carries
but
risks. Yeah.
But it was like a big, brave thing you guys asked of me. And I'm grateful, and I'm glad that it resonates with people and continues to.
And it's funny what you said about being vulnerable, because it was vulnerable to write too. Carter and I are these super emo, sort of, we are highly sensitive people. We wear our hearts on our sleeves. We have big dreams like Ted. The creation of this show when we were 30 years old, that was a far-fetched, impossible dream to create this show. That was us Ted Mosbying all over the place, coming up with some big, far-fetched plan that should never have worked out.
Demanding it rain.
But somehow it did, demanding that it rain. And somehow it worked out, not in all the ways we thought it would, which is the same story for Ted. It never goes exactly how you plan, but it becomes beautiful in some different way than you ever could have imagined. That was the show. What's funny is Carter and I are very much like that. Marshall's a really sweet, emotional, open-hearted, warm softy of a guy. He's basically had one, girlfriend who became his wife. And we would get these notes early on sometimes from well-meaning executives. early and before the show was launched, probably before we even cast it, but also maybe early in the run, where we get these notes. The characters were so based on us at first, right? And then it became like creating it with you guys. But at first it really was us. And we would get these notes from executives that would be the effect of like, these guys are just such fucking wimps. That's how it felt. It was just like, we would get notes that to the effect of like, no man would ever...
No man who would call himself a man.
Self-respecting man would ever behave in this way. We're like, well, that's based on something that I did. And it was really, really weird. And I think it was my little glimpse at probably how it felt to you in literally your body, embodying the character.
Yeah.
And you had to sort of carry that. The MTV show Jackass, you were doing that with your heart on CBS every Monday night. You were just like, what happens if we push Ted's heart off a cliff in a shopping cart? Let's see what happens. And it's just like, there was kind of a stunt, an emotional stuntman quality to that. And you were kind of doing your own stunts.
Yeah, especially when there's so much confusion between, you play a character, and especially if it's the first introduction to you. I didn't have a lot of public things, but I mean, I had pilots and series that didn't go anywhere. And so this was where people kind of met me. So they thought, well, this is who this is,
right.
I do remember at the beginning of, I think, second or third season, but I don't remember which one, but no, it was the beginning of third season. And you guys wanted to really send Ted and Barney out on a lot of adventures. And you started writing Ted as a little more Barney-ish in terms of like, he was open to like one night stands and all this stuff. And I remember Pam told me that you guys got a note that said, there's a lot of Barneys on TV, but there's only one Ted. Let's keep him, let's preserve his Tedness or his Mosby-ness.
Yeah, totally. And we had a lot of really smart, strong female voices from the studio and the network who really got the emotion behind the show and were kind of guardians of that. And that doesn't always happen. And that was really nice. And it's not like that fit in with every other show on the network at the time. And that was preserved. And it was what was beautiful about the show. And thank God.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a quick little pause and just say, our producer, Alec Love, our wonderful and heroic producer, without whom we wouldn't be doing this show, will chime in from time to time with a question or guidance.
Thank you guys for bringing me into this. And I'm excited to be on the journey with you. And you might hear some questions from me. My first one here, if I could just throw one in, Josh, is why now?
Why now?
You've had 10 years, podcasts have been around, you've been thinking about this show, and then all of a sudden, Craig got the call, and then I got the call. You'd like to think about this now, and I'm wondering what.
And Josh,
what
I hope
that
this answer will include your lovely new wife, because I'm eager to talk about that spark of it all too.
Yeah, well, I did get married a year ago, almost exactly a year ago.
Congrats.
And I got married at 49. I mean, It took me a while to both meet my wife and to almost be ready to get married. And I had, without going too much into it, I had challenges in relationships. They were never, I found them easy to get into. I found them hard to sustain. Let's just say that. And a lot of that's between me and my therapist. But the journey of kind of becoming the man I who could stand in front of my wife and make that kind of commitment was quite a journey. And I felt and it was different. Like I said, like my challenges in relationships were different. Like I used to joke with people, they say, Ted has to be careful not to get married on the first date, but I had to be careful not to get divorced on the first date. Like I was always like looking for the problem kind of thing, not like falling in love so quickly. But I think there's something about turning 50, having gotten married, and just done some work around some of the shadowy aspects of playing Ted, being thought of as a person that you're not. Some of that was really hard for me. It was really hard to navigate. Just in the realm of like identity. Like, who am I? Who do I self-conceive of? Who do I think I am? Versus like all these people are telling me, that's not your name. Your name is not Josh. You have to be rolling around New York City with Ted and Barney, and you are Marshall and Barney, and you are, and it felt like this almost theft of my sense of self. Like, it was really a challenge. But as the years have gone by, the people who say, I had a guy from Turkey yesterday or 2 days ago stop me, came running out of coffee shop to stop me. And he said, thank you so much for teaching us to believe in love, to believe in ourselves.
That's an amazing thing to hear on like a Tuesday morning at like 11 in the morning. Yeah.
And Jordana, my wife, is really good at making me kind of pinch myself in those moments when she's with me, like to say like, do you see that you were a part of something that really moved people? So the people who it's outweighed by, any of that shadowy stuff is outweighed by the people who just say like, like Rob Delaney in his book saying, my wife and I needed to laugh and we watched How I Met Your Mother when our son was sick in the hospital. Like things like that. It's made me almost in like a like a Jungian way, like to say, all right, there's part of Ted that is, I wrote pretty extensively about this in my newsletter, but maybe a year or two ago, but about Ted's a part of me. He's literally a part I played, but he's not all of me.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time, I was like trying to be like, that's not me. That's not me. Like I was in rejection of him and I would not take roles that evoked him. And I was really fighting him. And I think there's something about the time in my life right now, and maybe it's just literally the mercy of time that has allowed me to say, all right, let's turn around and look at this guy. Let's look at this character you played. Let's look at who you were when you played this character. And look, I was a different person in 2005 than I was in 2014. And so were you.
Oh, big time.
A lot changed. And I'm a lot different now than I was in 2014.
Yeah.
So I think it was just, something allowed me the space and the grace and the patience with myself to go, let's stop running away. Let's actually, this is a part, it's going to be in my obituary. A lot of people recognize me from it and still want to talk about it. So I wanted to drop whatever war I had with it and just say like, all right, How I Met Your Mother. All right, Ted, let's take him. Let's bring it in, bring it in. Let's see what's there.
Yeah. And I hope that will make this little exploration, this experiment we're doing of this podcast sort of universal to people, even if it's not like HWMYM super fans. And like, I love that the HWMYM super fans will listen, but it's also kind of a podcast about figuring out who you were in another chapter and how does it fit in with who you are now.
I mean, all the grand
kind of a life question.
All the grand themes of How I Met Your Mother are at play right now in this podcast, and they will be as long as we do it. I do hope that there's people who've never watched the show who tune into this podcast and watch it with us.
Okay, well, that brings me to a question.
Yeah.
So Josh and I just played this wonderful chair. And another thing that's emerged since How I Met Your Mother is that Josh Radnor has become an amazing musician, singer, songwriter. And I have had the privilege a few times now of playing music with him at these fan-based fundraisers we do for a really important cause that I will talk about at some other point. And we just did it. We just did it at Bowery Ballroom, and it sold out a month early because How I Met Your Mother fans are the best, as I said. And two different people there afterwards, two different fans told me they had just watched the series 13 times over. they watched it 13 times.
Let's just do the math on that, because there's 208
My brain is trying to
episodes.
do 13 times 208 and failing. I'm an English major.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. And thank you for watching it that much. I haven't seen it that many times. I haven't done a rewatch in a long time. Here's my question. Tell the fans, tell the people listening, how many times over has your wife, Jordana, seen How I Met Your Mother?
Wow. So Jordana, my wife, has seen How I Met Your Mother 0 times. She's never seen the show, which was probably a help in our courtship.
I find this, I just want to say I find this so fascinating. So what's happening here? I just want to lay it out for people. Part of the reason we're doing this podcast is that you were talking to Jordana about this and saying there's this crazy chapter of my life you don't know anything about. You were thrilled, I think, that she didn't know anything about it because she just met you. Everything you just said about carrying Ted and wearing Ted on your face, she fell in love with you. She did not know what the hell How I Met Your Mother was.
Right.
And still does not, right? You haven't started the rewatch.
And it's also crazy because she is a TV fan. She watches a lot of shows. This one she missed.
So one of the experiments of this too is Josh will now sit down and eerily like How I Met Your Mother in the episode where Ted is dating Stella.
Shows her Star Wars.
Stella has not seen Star Wars, and Ted is terrified. What if she watches Star Wars, one of my one of my core movies, and doesn't like it? Do I have to break up with her? Forget that felt like high stakes in the moment when we were writing that as Star Wars nerds. But can you imagine you're going to sit and watch How I Met Your Mother, a decade of your life. You're going to sit and watch that with your wife. Is there pressure? Will that be a fun watch, or will you be sort of side-eyeing her going like, is she liking this?
I'm
will so fascinated by this.
Probably watch her watch it quite a bit. I will say our relationship could withstand her not liking it, but I don't.
Good.
I suspect she's not going to not like it. Is that right? Is that what I mean to say?
Let's say yes. Yeah.
She's a psychologist. She's incredibly, obviously, psychologically attuned, so she will understand the deeper aspects of the show for sure. But we are going to have a section, we haven't worked out exactly how to do it, but we have a section called questions and observations from a clinical psychologist, relationship expert who's never seen How I Met Your Mother, who also happens to be married to Josh.
Is that title too catchy? Because that's just
we should get an
acronym
for it. Let's just get an acronym for it, and we'll be able to.
It's almost as good as HWMYM.
HWMYM, yeah.
I love that. I mean, my wife Rebecca, who, and I guess I should have said this sooner. She the two of us are kind of like Marshall and Lily, right? It's we met at Wesleyan University. We've been together that whole time, and we were like the old married couple in our late 20s, and that was part of the impetus of How I Met Your Mother and the creation of those characters. She is so annoyed because she only ever watched every episode once, and she said, "Here's how I watched every episode. It would be Monday night. It would be airing. You'd be sitting next to me, staring at me, seeing if I laughed at the right spots. You would say, 'Did we sound mix that wrong? You didn't hear, I think you didn't hear that line because you didn't laugh.' And she'd be like, 'I didn't laugh because it wasn't that great.' It's not all gold. It's not all gold, dude." And I'd ask her, like, "Is the music too hot there compared to the dialogue?" And she'd be like, I don't care. I just want to watch it. Stop it." So that was her great. She watched for 9 years like that and has basically never seen episodes besides that. And she has been asking for years, like, "Can we dive back in? Can we do the rewatch?" And I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't do it. I don't know why. Maybe I was waiting for a round number. I was waiting for these 10s and 20s or something.
I know this from watching, films I made, like, you stop thinking about the mix 10 years later.
Right.
You'll
or
just
the bad joke. You're like, that joke could have been funnier. And then you see it later and you're like, that was a good joke. What the fuck was I talking about?
And this old man, he must admit he fell in love with you in New York City.
And now, commercials.
This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. Craig.
Yes, Josh?
Real talk here.
I'm here for it.
You a therapy guy? You in therapy?
I am very much so in therapy. I have been in therapy for years and years. If I could go back in time, I would just start it sooner than I did.
Like at 3-4 years old?
I would start it in utero. I would literally be talking to somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. I love therapy. My life has been up leveled by therapy. I'm married to a therapist, as we've discussed. So we're this is a pro therapy podcast, right?
Very pro therapy. Like I said, I would, if I could go back in time, I would start it as a teenager for sure. That would be my target area. But if I could, How I Met Your Mother flashback in time, I would go there and start therapy. And the question of this little ad is, who's your support system and how have they changed your life? Was there a particular time in your life when asking for support from a therapist or from your community was helpful to you?
Now, think about your favorite leaders, mentors, idols. Like me and Craig, we don't have all the answers.
We don't. Well, I mean, more than you, but yeah.
But we do know when to ask questions or seek support from our community, which is all the time. In a society that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better when we have a support system behind us.
I do it every week. It's such a necessary support. I do it on Mondays. It starts off my week right. Therapy can be a source of support for any area of your life. It's time to shift the focus from doing it all to knowing that we're better when we ask for help.
I thought you were going to give us the appointment name and place and doctor's name so we could all come with you.
I actually just I wander around just talking to people on the street. I don't technically have a therapist, but I just make people listen to me.
Whoever will listen.
Yeah, a lot of people are really helpful though.
BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. That's fantastic.
Access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost.
Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/yourmother to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/yourmother. So you don't have to blame your mother. Let's talk about something we all need: online privacy and security. Whether you're working remotely, traveling, or just browsing from your favorite cafe, your data should stay yours. And that's where Surfshark comes in.
Surfshark is a VPN that keeps your internet activity private and secure, protecting you from hackers, trackers, and prying eyes. Plus, it lets you access content from anywhere in the world by changing your virtual location. Want to stream shows that aren't available in your country? No problem. Need to bypass restrictions when you travel? Done.
Craig, I have a question. What's a VPN?
I haven't understood any of these words so far.
What's the internet? I'm
like
unclear.
when a dog learns how to say "I love you" and it doesn't really mean it.
We've read 2 paragraphs.
I think the second half we're going to get what it is
because we're ancient. We're too old. We don't. But
that's why we need this, Josh. That's why we need this service.
And also,
whatever
Surfshark has 24/7 customer support for old tech-phobic late adopters like us. And also this is great. One account covers unlimited devices. So we can protect our phones, our laptops, our tablets.
I know what those are. I know 2 of those 3.
Whatever you use to stay connected. I think because we don't understand this means we need this.
I think we very much need this. I might call 24/7 customer support just to chat, just because I get lonely at night.
but we don't understand exactly what this does, which I think makes us a ripe target for hackers.
We're walking targets. So why wait? Take control of your online experience today. Head to surfshark.com/yourmother to sign up and get 4 extra months of Surfshark. Give it a try. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you've got nothing to lose.
Great job, Craig. I'm going to go out and yell at some kids on my lawn.
End of commercials. Back to show.
But here's the thing that we were starting to unpack in a talk, but we said, let's save it for the show. Yeah. And we can also dip into this with Carter, but it's so fascinating to me that you guys were the age of the characters you were writing, essentially.
Yeah.
And yet it was framed as a flashback from an older, wiser man who was offering this kind of wisdom and perspective born of his years of being farther along. And being able to look back and contextualize it. And so you were having to, from inside of the experience, you were having to almost beam your consciousness forward 20 or 25 years.
Yeah.
And reflect back on the moment you were in, which is like a heroic amount to ask, I think, of anyone, much less, young kids running their first TV show. Like, were you conscious of the weirdness of that?
It seems weirder now in a way. It almost didn't seem that weird at the time, and I think it's because we fancied ourselves older and wiser than our years.
Right.
I think we were like 32 writing 52 or something, right? When we were thinking about future Ted's perspective, or he's in his mid 50s, whatever he is. We're now far closer to that, and I look back at it, and I do think it had something to do with being drawn to the idea of reassurance of the future. There's a future you. Because you feel so lost when you're 30, right? You're not actually quite an adult, right? We all felt like frauds. We were all the same age. We were all these little kids. We somehow fooled our way into having a TV show, and I think we were just imagining our future selves telling us what we wanted to hear now in this moment, because we felt lost, because we felt scared, because we felt daunted, and that idea of that future Ted gave us so much confidence. Like it sort of lifted us up to be looking through that lens. And we, by pretending to be that thing, we sort of became that thing. And
that's so great.
Now we're sort of almost the age of future Ted. And I still feel just about as confused as I ever did about life. But I feel a little older and a little wiser. And, I think another big part of it was we were aware, Carter and I were big thinkers, we're overthinkers, and we were very aware that a chapter of our lives had ended. The 20s in New York part had ended. We were writers for David Letterman, and we made this leap. And this will be a very heavy thing to bring up and talking about a sitcom, but 9/11 happened a little bit before, like that happened right before we moved to LA. And there was just this feeling in New York City, sort of writ large, that something had ended. Some era had ended. Something had changed that was not going to change back. And then we found ourselves living in Los Angeles trying to think of a pilot idea to write. And we wrote about this nostalgia for our 20s in New York when we were like 30 and 1 day old. We were nostalgic for our 20s in New York immediately. But nostalgic for like a time before this horrible tragedy hadn't happened, right? We were still writing for Letterman when 9/11 happened, and then we left to move to LA the spring after that, like the spring of 2002. And I just think the sort of gravitas and the instant requirement to become more of a grown-up from living through 9/11 in New York, and the instant nostalgia and the desire to sort of have things make sense or be back in some simpler time, inhabit a different time in your brain and your memories when things didn't feel the way they felt after 9/11. And I think that weirdly really informed the show. It made us like maybe a little older than our years, and it made us a little more reflective, a little more nostalgic. And I think part of that is how we accessed writing from that future perspective, even when we were in our 30s and we're pretending to be the old wise guy. But somehow we could sort of fake our way into being that, at least on paper. And I sometimes, people will quote lines from future Ted to me and say that got them through a really hard time. Thank you for those wise words. And I'm thinking, we were like 31, wishing we had that wisdom and sort of like play acting it, but it worked somehow, right? It worked for those people.
It feels to me
like
Kenneth Branagh at 31 playing Lear, and you're like, what are you doing?
Right.
But also it's like, he's good at it.
Right.
You
and
know?
you sort of, and does it elevate you? It's sort of that idea of like the fake it till you make it thing. Like it elevated us and made us feel like we really were that older, wiser.
Speaking of Jordana, who it seems like we'll be talking about a bit, she has a thing where she'll sometimes say to her patients, if someone's really confused, really tied in knots about something, she'll say, what does your 85-year-old self say?
She's going to like HWMYM. She's going to like the show.
Yeah, but it's
like,
a great question. And she said, if you ask yourself, what is my 85-year-old self? The answer comes real fast. And it's real certain.
Yes.
And I think, I mentioned this in that piece I wrote about Ted for my newsletters, but Dick Schwartz has this thing, Internal Family Systems, IFS, which is like really, it's called parts work. And you're locating these parts of yourself that are sometimes at odds with each other, but they're all in you. And it strikes me that you and Carter, and me too, we have an elder in us.
Right.
We have an older, I don't know if it's ancestral or just a wise, something connected more towards the bigger picture, the perennial kind of wisdom. Yeah. And we can go there. We can access it at 31 or 30, whenever you guys were writing. The other thing that I don't know if it was you or Carter, but first season, what year was older Ted narrating? 2030?
2030, yeah.
2030. So one of you guys said, it's actually the most optimistic show in the world because it's saying the world will still be here in 2030. Like there'll still be fathers talking to their kids in 2030. Yeah,
no, we would make the joke because it is inspiring to think of, and then we'd make the joke, but also like we could end the series where you realize like future Ted is telling his kids that story like a mile underground the surface of the earth, and like he's going to pan up to the earth's surface, and it's just like the machines have risen up and killed us all. But yeah, we like that idea. There will always be future you there to tell your story. There's a future version of you to whom this all makes more sense, and that is just so much more generous and has such gratitude for even the low moments looking back.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the thing you're describing that I think opened my heart the most to the series, and I don't know how much I sense from the pilot, but I think it's all there. The DNA of the whole show is in the pilot, which we'll be unpacking.
Yeah.
But it's a fundamentally optimistic show. at its core. It is not a nihilistic, cynical show. It's a show about decent people, and even Barney, who's like somewhat of a sociopathic criminal, based on whatever episode he's in, has a core of sweetness about him.
Yeah.
And the way Neil played it, kind of with a wink, that made him helped him get away. You guys all get away with a lot. But it's a fundamentally optimistic show, and I liked being both for professional reasons, but more almost like for personal reasons. Like, I'm really conscious of what I'm putting into the collective. Like, I want, and How I Met Your Mother made some missteps and stumbles, and we're going to unpack all of those.
Oh yeah.
But generally, I felt like its feet were pointed in a really good direction, and its heart was in the right place. Also, how narratively inventive it was. There were something like 40 to 60 scenes in an average How I Met Your Mother episode.
The record was 80. The record was 83 in 21 minutes, 21 and a half minutes. Basically, you're doing 81 scenes or 60 scenes or 50 scenes. Like, it's a lot.
But I'm curious.
Alec, you have a question? By the way, I will say Alec Lev is chiming in a little comment. Alec worked on the show multiple seasons as our new media coordinator. He did the In Production podcast, which we did for a few years on the show, and he did all the sort of internet presence and DVD extras and all the stuff. So Alec is also a HWMYM alum, which I failed to say. Alec, what do you want to say?
And you and I also shared a cat at Wesleyan.
We went to college and lived together all 4 years. And one time I was hanging out with Alec and a bunch of people, and he said, he introduced me forgetting that we went to college together. He started explaining what Wesleyan is. He said to other people that we were standing with that went to Wesleyan, he's like, we all went to college together at Wesleyan. I'm like, yeah, asshole. I lived with you 4 years. You don't have to tell me that. Anyway, Alec, go ahead.
Well, no, I just want to, so this podcast, I want to hear a little bit as we wrap up this first episode of what people can expect from this version of a rewatch podcast. If you've heard other ones where people go episode by episode, we are going to do that. Next week, you're going to hear Carter Bays. We've talked a lot about Carter. Carter's going to join us to talk about the creation of How I Met Your Mother and all these questions that you guys have been asking. And then from there, we'll be going episode by episode. But can you talk a little bit about what people are going to hear that you know of? Because of course we don't quite know where we're going exactly. But Josh, talk a little bit about what's coming up.
Yeah, I know this is a big fun trend that people are really liking, these rewatch podcasts. I have to confess, I've never listened to a single one of them. I don't know. I know it's happening. I don't know what other people are doing. I just know what I like to talk about with Craig. I have, and Craig has some special insight into this particular show. I think that some episodes will be more very specifically about the episode. I imagine, when we get to Drum Roll Please, right? We'll like talk very deeply about that episode. It's a pretty iconic one. I remember, I think this is true, that they could analyze the data, like once it went up maybe on Netflix, and Drum Roll Please was the one that was like the hookiest episode. Like, it was the one that made people want to watch more or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's right. That's right. Yeah.
But then there are other ones that maybe are a little less dense, that might just inspire another talk. So like, if you're tuning in with us, you're going to hear a lot of talk about How I Met Your Mother, but you're also going to hear us muse about different things, different. I want us to be open to talk about our own lives, to talk about. It's not going to be super current affairsy, because I think like one of the things I love about How I Met Your Mother is the part of it that ages well in terms of. There wasn't a lot of tech in How I Met Your Mother. I mean, it was things that will be perennially relevant, right? So I think if you want to watch along or rewatch along with us, there's going to be a lot of talk about certain episodes, certain jokes, where it came to, funny offstage anecdotes, inside baseball stuff that will be really fun for the superfan. But also, I hope it's just a fun, getting to spend some time with us, in a way that feels nourishing and insightful and just like a breezy good time,
Yeah, and I think there's going to be some looking back with different eyes. I think there'll be some owning of some moments that didn't age as well, even though I hope the show is timeless. I think there's going to be a few like apologies to people whose stories we stole without asking. I was terrible at that. I would just take people's life stories and be like, that's funny, put it on TV, and then I wouldn't tell the person they'd see on TV
until they saw it.
What the hell's going on here? So
if you're wondering where he got the idea for a married couple sharing a toothbrush, just tune in. We'll dive in on that one.
Spoilers, it's Alec and his wife. I mean, let's just get there. Let's go there. Why are we going to wait?
Someone watched it and said, it's pronounced chameleon?
Oh my God. I definitely want to talk about that one. But yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to look back on it, and sometimes it'll be very much about the episode. Sometimes it'll just be us like, what did the topic of that episode make us think about at the time and now, and how do we look at it now, and how much I want to talk also about like what of our lives at the time made it onto the show, and what it was happening in our own personal lives that informed the show. Like I went through a lot during How I Met Your Mother, as did we all. In 9 years, you go through a lot of stuff, and basically 10 years door to door. And I want to talk about that stuff.
And also how you as writers start paying attention very keenly to us as actors and how that changes how you write the character.
Yeah.
There were certain things I remember like sometimes you'll get a big laugh at a run through, like a network run through. And I'll just be like, oh, they're going to. And I remember when I walked in, Return of the Shirt, which for some reason I have very big fondness for. But when I walked in and Marshall said, hot top, bro. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I just said, right. And for some reason, right became a kind of
like a catchphrase.
Mosbyism.
It was
right?
a low-key catchphrase.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the first times I said it. But I remember people just,
I say that
Courtney
all the time.
Kang just like laughed so hard. I was like, right.
We did that all the time. That is that's a low-key HWMYM catchphrase. I'm glad you put that one out. I definitely still say that. And that was did you improvise that? I don't feel like did we write that, or was that you?
I don't remember. I have.
We might have written it, but
I have
feel like
one
in my mind
where people say, did you ever write on the show? And I said one line, and it was, what was the thing where I had to climb in the mailbox and I got stuck in the mailbox? What was that?
I'm literally blanking on what the context of that was.
But it was on the New York street, and I dropped in a letter to the mailbox, and then I realized I needed to get it out. I shouldn't have mailed it. But I remember I did the rehearsal, and I went up to either you or Carter, whoever was on set, and I said, can I drop it in and say, mailed it?
Oh my God.
That was my one big improv that made it.
Oh my God. I dispute that. I feel like there were many more than that, but that's a good one.
Maybe. Yeah.
So I just want to add here about all the ways that listeners can interact with the show, because from the very beginning, you've both been saying you want this very much to be a show for not just for the fans, but sort of by them as well. And if you go to our website, howwemadeyourmother.com, you're going to find a way that you can send us a message and tell us your story, and you can tell us a story just about How I Met Your Mother in general, or there's even ways for you to talk about specific episodes. Send in an audio message to us, like you heard at the beginning of this show. You can also write us a message, and we'll read a lot of those, like a lot of them. Like we really want to hear from you. Also, the home of this show online is really going to be on Substack, and you can find a link to that on our website. Josh is on Substack, and you can read his newsletters, and then you'll also be able to read about the show. Josh and Craig are going to write a little bit about each episode. You'll get the show notes there, and maybe other ways to interact. And then, of course, we're all over social media. So if you just go over to howwemadeyourmother.com, you're going to find all of those ways to be a part of How We Made Your Mother.
Yeah. And we really want to encourage people to kind of like join the community of this thing and kind of, collect an archive of like, this is what the show is and was and remains and to us. But we love the idea of you guys feeling like it's us doing this, but you're with us, so participate, join us, tell your friends. We're really excited. We're soliciting kind of testimonials about How I Met Your Mother and what it's meant to people. And that we really want this to be a feature of the show. We want to hear from you out there, how you discovered the show, what it's meant to you. So I'm just going to read one because maybe we'll make this a regular feature. But this one says, "Hey, Josh, I'm sending you this message from France. I don't know if you really love being recognized as Ted Mosby, but today I want to talk to you about it. I need to talk to you about it because tonight, for the third time, I finished How I Met Your Mother, and for the third time, I cried a lot. I'm 17, and I really grew up watching this series, and I mean in every way possible. I went through a lot of very bad times, and you were always there to make me laugh and believe again. You were there to instruct me really important things about life. Every episode had something to teach me. I just like your character, believe a lot in destiny. Maybe too much. I love too much. I do everything too much. And sometimes I'm worrying if I shouldn't just stop. But thanks to How I Met Your Mother, I'll never worry again because this is me and I'm never going to change. I'll still be me forever. So what I want to say is a big thank you, Josh, for everything. By the way, I listen to your songs and they are legend. Wait for it. Dairy. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, Alec picked that one. I don't want it to seem like I was like, let's pick the one where they mention my music.
I am guilty. Please acquit me. All sins are forgiven in New York City.
How We Made Your Mother is hosted and executive produced by Josh Radnor and Craig Thomas. The show is produced by me, Alec Lev, and our co-producer is Doug Matica. Our audio producer and mixer is Alex Reeves at Point of Blue Studios. Artwork by John Morrow. Please follow, rate, and review the show on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice. It really does help the show. Our theme song is NYC by our own Josh Radnor. Special thanks to Lola Kennedy and Elliot Connors. Visit howwemadeyourmother.com to sign up for our Substack mailing list and for links to our social media. You can also click on the contact page to send us an email or a voice message. Your stories and questions are an important part of the show. Subscribe to Josh Radnor's newsletters on Substack. Read Craig Thomas's published prose at craigthomaswriter.com. And you can subscribe to my Dead Fathers Society, also on Substack. To learn about how you make a difference, this show's ongoing campaign to raise money for congenital heart disease research, check out the Make a Difference tab at the top of our website. This episode was made possible by the support of Backyard Ventures, marketing provided by Tink Media. People will, in fact, dance.
The real question, it just hit me. Am I in love with you or just New York City?
Well, Craig,
Josh, thank you for chatting with me, my friend.
Oh,
this
man.
is a delight. This is a delight. If not one person listens, I'm still having a really good time. But
let's do it 220 more times.
Let's do it.
At least
13, times 13.
Yeah, but it's a delight to spend time with you and Alec, and I'm excited to unpack this stuff. And it feels like psychologically healthy for me to do this. You know, it feels like, are you ready to go back to the Titanic? You know,
Yeah.
it's got a kind of quality of that, but I am, you know, let's do it.